It is, if you go to Standard 5 of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, it outlines the process used in mass appraisal. I've alluded to those methods without getting down into the dirty details as I've gone through the presentation. Median sale price. We're aiming to get an assessment ratio in that neighborhood that's close to that median ratio, but not over it, because we don't want to overappraise properties that are on the other side of that value. The way that our guys do this, and when I say guys, there's girls involved too, they have dual monitors on their desks. They're able to pull up a GIS map of the entire neighborhood and everything around it. And then what happens is their mass appraisal system overlays all of the sales activity in those neighborhoods color-coded so that they can then see, all right, here's where the current assessment is, but here's where the actual sale prices are. Let's retune our assessments to match those sale prices. Then they rerun their ratio study, and if the assessment ratio is just under 100%, the dispersion in there is fairly tight, within 10% above and below the median sale, we consider that good to go. That's acceptable by the uniform standards, and that's how we go about our work. I wish people could come and see it, because it's something to behold. Somebody reappraise a neighborhood in just under half an hour, basically, of doing some analysis. But the key is we have to keep monitoring sales, because as more sales come in, those numbers change. We're putting more weight on third and fourth quarter 2010 sales than we are anything else. In fact, in our opinion now, 2009 is ancient history. The market has changed since that time.
Got one more back here.
I wasn't clear about your answer to the somebody in the process of purchasing. So if they're not closing till April, do they have to wait until they close to protest, or
No.
do they have to do it within the 30 days
No.
of the seller getting the notification?
That's an excellent question. What a lot of people don't know is you can appeal any property you want to, even a property you don't own. And that happens all the time.
Right here.
For a home buyer who needs financing and needs to know his exact number for the monthly payment, there might be a quote coming to him right now based on an old tax bill. How soon can he see, I don't know, online, or me or the mortgage company or somebody, what the new tax bill is and how that is going to be factored into the monthly payment? Because that might change some buyers' decisions who are on the edge there with the monthly payments.
Sure, and again, this is just one of those statutory hurdles. The prospective home buyer is going to see that new notice of value by the middle of February. We're planning to get notices sent out by February the 7th. Hopefully we'll be on that timetable, and the website that we have that I mentioned will have a link to a site where you can click a map and see all the sales data in the neighborhood plus the new assessed value. That'll come up at the same time. But as far as a decision in terms of financing and what that's going to mean for escrow, nobody will really know all of that until the new tax rates are set over the summer. So that's just one of those caveat deals for a buyer.
All the way to the top.
Yeah, two questions. First, there is actually a form on the website that we can download to appeal the property values. Yeah, that's something.
No, we're required by statute to get a signed appeal form from whoever appeals the property.
Yeah, can we download, fill them up, and sign and turn them in instead of using the form that comes with the assessed value?
To my knowledge, that is not the case. The appeal form,
So if it's only on that, anybody can do it, how do you get around?
you couldn't get that form because that'll be mailed to the property owner. But you can still call or come by the office and say, I want to appeal the value of XYZ parcel. That does not preclude an individual from doing that, but the notices will be sent to the owners of record.
And all the appeal will have to be made before May of this year, is it correct?
Yes. Now, how long it'll take to process that appeal is another story. But, yes, within 30 days of notice, that would be the time frame to make that informal appeal.
So you're not aware of the form that's online that's downloadable?
Well, I think that's just a sample. It's not, I think it's actually got parcel number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got information on there that's not relevant. I think it's provided, I think, for a person to see, okay, this is what I'm going to be receiving in the mail. This bottom portion is what I would tear off to send back to the assessor's office.
Is there a way for a particular address to see which neighborhood is defined in?
There, if you go on the Polaris website, you can see what the neighborhood code is for that particular property, yes.
How do you get the key for what within 3?
So,
How do you find out what N03 means on Polaris? Is that Dilworth or is that Myers Park or is that?
well, we're deliberately keeping names off of there because that could be a problem. I don't live in Dilworth. But, if I'm not mistaken, on Polaris, there is an overlay, a layer where you can actually have those neighborhood boundaries defined by a red line that'll show you what parcels are included.
That's right.
Could you just touch a little bit more on the appeal process? After they send the notice in, will they just get a letter back saying it's denied? Or will they get a phone call? What happens?
Okay, that's a very fair question. A person sends their appeal form back in. The assessor intends to send a postcard to everyone who sends back an appeal form. We're gonna make copies of those forms and generate an automatic postcard notification. We have your appeal in hand. Now, the way this works is a property owner who gives us no information, who writes on there, this is too high, or as somebody said, this sucks, or whatever. I'm sorry. I don't normally say, I just don't know. But I can tell you from 22 years experience with Mecklenburg County, that's going to be an automatic no change. They will get a notification in the mail that we have not changed that, because with the volume of appeals, we need to move on to those that have given us something to work with. So those that come back to us and say, my square footage is not right, or you've got a factual error on my listing, those will get a field review. Now, the appraiser will do their best to try to get in touch with the property owner, but even there, it may require us coming and making a visit when the property owner is not available. We'll leave a card, we'll leave some information behind. Those who dispute the value estimate, we will do analysis within our office, and if we have to go by and see the property, we will. And then we will notify the property owner of our decision based on the information they provided to us. Once they receive that notification, if they're not satisfied with the result, they can then take the appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review. Now let me just interject this. Every property that is appealed to the Board of Equalization and Review will receive a visit or a phone call from one of our appraisers. But property needs to go through the informal appeal process first. And again, I can't stress this enough. The overwhelming vast majority of appeals are resolved at that level. We're able to come to a meeting of the minds. In 2003, we had 19,000 appeals after the revaluation. And if I remember correctly, only about 3,400 of those went on to the Board of Equalization. Can y'all still hear me? Okay.
Okay, I have just two quick questions. Where do you actually get your sales data from? GIS or the tax, Realist or MLS sales? Where are you pulling square footage and the sales price and all that?
As far as where we get the sales data, all of the above. Register of Deeds, MLS, we go online to check with some of y'all, some of the information you have. But as far as the physical attributes of the property, that's based on our on-site listing of the property. Now again, it might have been several years ago since we were there last. And so unless new permits have been taken out, we don't necessarily know that the listing of the property has changed.
Okay, so for someone who's done interior upgrades themselves without a permit, it's under obviously a certain amount of money, you're not gonna know that.
Right,
So for them, their tax value may be lower than what it should actually be for a sale.
exactly.
Okay, next question is, well, actually, back to that real quick. So if tax data and MLS data are different, who's gonna win out on that? You're gonna call the agent, what information is gonna be the most prevalent and the most used?
Are you saying if the information we have doesn't agree with what's on MLS?
Yeah, for example, Realist information is pumped all the time. MLS data, we've gone out, we've actually measured the house, that's more correct than probably what's pulling up in Realist, for
Right.
example.
Yeah, and sometimes our sales analyst who has access to MLS information will track sales, and if he suspects there's a listing issue based on the MLS data, he can dispatch one of our appraisers to go check the listing to see if it needs to be updated. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we rely primarily on our own information.
Okay, that's kind of scary. Sorry. I think everybody's probably in agreement on that. And then what percentage of foreclosures is going to, I think you mentioned something about 15%, but what percentage of foreclosures would actually make you go, okay, red flag, we need to now count them in this neighborhood as, pertinent information?
All of them.
All of them. Okay, so across the board, Mecklenburg County is going to use every single foreclosure in their assessment.
We were not originally, but as we've watched the number rise, we've decided, okay, we're going to hang our hats on the most recent 2010 data. Let's go ahead and factor them in and see what they do to the median.
Okay.
Just one quick question again. Do you give equal weight to private sales? I live in a neighborhood where there have been a number of private sales.
Off market.
Off market. Do you give equal weight?
Well, the only way we know about those is when those come through the Register of Deeds office, and then our sales analyst will look to see what the terms of the transaction were. And, honestly, I'm not sure what the answer to your question is. I'll have to find out. I'll be happy to get back with you to see if he puts a disqualifier code on that if it's not typical for the neighborhood. It's a good question.
This one should be a little easier. We were just talking about, for our sake, updating the tax values on the MLS. When you send out the notifications to us, is that when it's going to also be updated on the charmec.org so we can look up our seller's new tax value?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly correct.
I can talk loud.
It's like
We're taping it.
Need a podium.
I'm just not very confident that I'm going to get one of these mailed to me. With that